What's the difference between 1000 elo and 2200 elo? Well, you're about to find out because my opponent is recording this game at the same time that I am. And we're going to go back to back with what he's thinking about, what I'm thinking about, so you can see the difference. Hope you guys enjoy.
I had to accept, right? So let's have a look. I'm going to do Scotch game opening, which I've been doing for a bit. I'm not sure my previous two higher rating players, 1400 and 1300, I beat. I think today might be a bit harder. So this is all known territory for me at the moment, but feeling a little bit nervous as to what's to come. Is he going to take? He does. So I'm going to take with the knight.
And he does take back with the knight. And again, there's not a whole lot of options here. I'm going to go with the main line here, bishop to c5, and just attack the knight on d4. So he could either trade or defend would be the two main moves here. So that's what I'm expecting. Yes, you could play c3, although that's not really as popular as bishop e3 and knight takes c6.
Now, is he going to bring the queen out? There's some tricky line. I watched a Daniel Naroditsky video where he brought the queen out, but he's not done that. Maybe I forgot about that line as well. I think it was after one more move, but let's see. Also, you'll see we're doing 15-10 today. A couple of people have asked for 15-10, so this works well. So the bishop coming out, obviously this is essentially hanging because we've got this and this. So I'm not going to leave this here. I could defend with the pawn and then take, and then it would be defend, take. I think defending with the pawn is a good option because then also, yeah, I think defending with the pawn is a good option. Famous last words.
And on knight takes c6, there's a little tricky line, queen f6, which we could play. We'll see if we get a chance to do that. Bishop e3, I'm not totally familiar with that. I think we still play queen f6, and then the knight jumps over here. There's also queen g6 line, which if he plays bishop e3, we'll talk about that more in just a second. Okay, he does go c3 right away, which is a good move, right? It's still defending the pawn. I'm not sure if it's significant that it's different than bishop e3. Like, is there a reason that it's maybe bad? I'm wondering if I can play a move like d5. Because usually when you see c3, you want to be thinking about d5. Because a lot of times the drawback to d5 is they're going to take you, your queen comes out, and then you lose a tempo. Pawn's on c3, so maybe d5 is a move that I want to consider. The question is, do I do it like right now, or do I think about doing it later? I'm even considering knight to f6. I'm not sure if there's a difference with that move. Unfortunately, I'm not like super familiar with the Scotch theory, so I don't really have a lot of opening lines to go off of. I'm kind of just having to think through this. So yeah, let's see. If I play d5 right away, I think I'm pretty happy with that, because if he takes here, I can just trade. Pretty happy with that. Unleashes my bishop. If he goes for something like bishop e3, I could probably just take that. Takes. We could take here. Looks like we're fine. The knight usually doesn't have any good in-between moves from that square. So yeah, I think d5 is an okay move. Let me just check bishop to b5 here. And is that going to cause me any problems? I don't believe so, because I can always trade the knight if I need to. Or even just play bishop to d7. Let's see if we take. Let's see. Takes. We could trade the queens first. Bishop to d7. Yeah, maybe we could get into a little bit of trouble, though. We do have knight e7. Yeah, I think we have a lot of options, so I'm not worried about that. Let's go ahead and play d5. And I'm taking my time because this is a longer game. So when you're playing longer time control games, you want to make sure you're playing good moves, right? You can't treat it like a bullet game where you just play a bunch of moves that are okay and expect to win. You have to play good moves. So that's why I'm thinking through this a little bit extra. Also, the fact that the Scotch is not an opening that I've really studied extensively, I want to be a little bit careful with what I do.
And now let's just kind of take stock of where we are. A little bit behind in development. Nelson's got his bishop and knight out. We've just got the knight out so far. As we talk through this, I'm pretty sure Nelson is showing where there's some line that's happening that's going to just destroy my position. So, pawn push. He's inviting the take, isn't he? And this is, I always get nervous when people who are a lot better do stuff like this, because you think it's just a free pawn. There's no such thing, is there? So what happens if I take? I take a free pawn and I kick the knight. No, it's not a free pawn, sorry, obviously. The queen is there. So it's not a free pawn. It just opens up that file. So there, then there's queen comes here, and then I can protect with my queen, but then it's a trade. I don't really want that. Is it better to... I think I'm going to go with taking this knight. I think I'm going to take any disruption that I can to a national master in terms of pawn structure. So I'm going to, obviously, I say obviously, I assume there's going to be a take back with the pawn now.
Okay, so he does take it. Now, of course, we could just take back. But there's also this idea in the Scotch of queen f6, and you go for checkmate. And the point is, it's a nice little in-between move that's kind of difficult for white to deal with. Now, what I need to understand is, does the move c3 and d5 change this idea? And actually it does. It does, because he has knight to d4. So normally in this, when you do this, there's no pawn on c3 and my pawn would still be back on d7. And you can go there because knight to d4 is not an option. You would simply take it. Doesn't really do anything. But in this case, knight to d4 stops the checkmate and saves the knight. So I can no longer even consider that, and I do have to take this back. I don't have to think any further.
Castling would be good. Maybe bishop there. So does take with the pawn. Now obviously we've got this. Do we want to defend that pawn? We could defend putting the bishop here. Is an option. I feel like that might be a decent option. I want to get the bishop out. I'm not going to put it here or here, am I? Or there. Here is okay too. But if we go here and Nelson takes, then I take here, and then we're eyeing up this fork with the rook and the king. I'm sure he's seen that already. But are there any other better moves? Any pieces hanging? I don't see any pieces hanging. This is protected here. This is protected here. This is protected here. This is the only hanging piece at the moment. This is protected. That's protecting there. That's protecting there. Queen and king are protected. So I'm going to go here. And let's see what happens.
He goes bishop d3. Okay. So, of course, I want to look at the capture just to see what's happening here. So if I take that and he takes me back, we could trade queens and maybe grab a pawn, but that's not going to end well because there's a fork. Okay. What if I actually take here first with the bishop, trying to lure the king away, but the queen's actually defended, so there's no tactic there. So it doesn't really look very appealing to me to take this. I mean, I guess you could say because he loses castling rights, that's not terrible. And then we could defend this instead of grabbing the pawn. So like knight to e7, maybe bring the bishop out and castle. It looks okay, but then my double isolated pawns and this actually do look bad. Like right now, I like it because if I recapture it, fixes my pawn structure. So I'm probably going to just leave that. All that to say. Let's check. You always want to check if there's some sort of a tactic with this. I don't think so. It doesn't really look like there's much happening there. But I'm looking. Knight to f6. He might play e5. Am I okay with that? If he takes, I'm definitely okay with that. If he pins me, yeah, it's kind of an annoying position, actually. Maybe, what about this move? Let's just see. g3 would be very bad, lots of weaknesses. Castling would probably be white's best move. I wouldn't be able to take that because of the pin here. So, don't love that. Honestly, I think I should play knight to e7. And the reason is because here, I don't want to get into trouble with a pin. With all that said, I think knight to e7 is the safest move right now. It fixes the problems with my queen getting pinned in some cases. I don't have to worry about the pin because I would have f6. And it gets ready to castle.
Do we have anything else we can do as well? We need to start getting these other pieces in the game. So knight comes out there. Interesting. Is it time to pin? I think I'm not going to change what I would normally do just because I'm playing someone that's really good. I think that's a good option.
So yeah, he does play bishop g5, and like I said, now it's different because instead of the knight being on f6, we could just play f6 ourselves and kind of waste a tempo. Now, it does create weaknesses, right? Like here, I have to be careful. But what I'm thinking is I'm going to be okay because I have the bishop, which can kind of fill in those light squares. Also, I really like the fact that I'm gaining a tempo. I don't have to play that move. I mean, I could just castle. That's an option too. But I'm not really concerned about this move because g6 looks like it would create a double attack. I believe white would lose a piece. So let's go ahead with f6.
Queen isn't really able to move much too now. Can only go to these two squares. So obviously this is massively winning for me. I'm definitely winning this. And yeah, I'm sure you have no doubt. You have no doubt that I'm going to win this with the mighty pin, because obviously then I think it would be pin and take with the queen. That, yeah, see, it's moves like this that people that are lower rated never, or very rarely, I think a lower rated player often plays this against me, and I've had that before, and then I just take and then do that. But obviously this is winning a tempo, and then I have to move the bishop now, which isn't great for me. I'm not going to move here because I'll get kicked. Where's good? I could move back here, or I could threaten a high value piece as well. For example, I could push this pawn. Then Nelson would have doubled pawns. I would have doubled pawns. I could go here. Then I'd have doubled pawns in the center. Not ideal. If Nelson took. I have a check. It doesn't do anything though. It doesn't do anything. I have a check, and then he would either move the king. Well, at least that prevents castling though, doesn't it? That check prevents castling. So if I check there, he has to move the king. So at least it prevents castling. Then, but the issue with the no, it doesn't, because another pawn push. This is the thing you have to you have to be careful with, isn't it? Because then I'd put the queen here. Oh my god, it's a check. It's amazing. And then this, and then both my bishop and my queen are under attack, and I can't move both of them at the same time. So that wouldn't be good. With that in mind, I'm going to go here.
Okay, so what's he attacking? c7, not concerned. Probably going to castle. One thing that I do want to pay attention to is this bishop, and the reason I want to pay attention to it is because it's undefended. Whenever you have pieces that are hanging like that, you got to watch out for tactics. I don't see anything. The only piece that I'm really concerned about would be the queen somehow attacking this. Like, for example, like a check here, and and losing my bishop. So that's something like if I mean, I'm not going to do it, but if I was playing, let's say, d4, boom, there's a check, and then goodbye to my bishop. So you want to keep those things in mind. Same thing with castling. I'm opening up, my king here. Is there some sort of a fork where the queen lands there, checks me, takes my bishop? No, there's not, so I'm okay. What about this? Can the queen land there? Again, it's covered, but I'm just giving you guys the types of things you want to be careful for, right? Because if you lose a piece here, that's really bad. But I think we're okay castling. I'm also paying attention to the bishop here. If he takes and tries to come checkmate me, do I have a response? So let's actually think through that a little bit. Takes, let's just say queen here. What would my response be, actually? Yeah, g6 we could play. Kind of weakening the king side. I think we could probably get away with it because it's gaining a tempo, and then maybe we could launch an attack. The other option would be to just gambit a pawn, not recapture here, and just like go for quick development. I wonder if I could take here. So we do have the queen h5 to worry about, but then we have g6. Takes, we could grab this or grab it this way. The idea is that if he takes, I'm going to trade, bring this bishop out, try to castle. It's actually a tricky position. I think I'm going to go with castling. It just feels like the safest move, but I do need to come up with some sort of a plan against this, right? Because you don't want to just walk into a checkmate threat and have no response. So what am I going to do? Options would be, don't take with the pawn, maybe take with the knight to create a threat. Yeah, I could probably get away with taking that. Or if we take, we're going to have to, maybe f5 actually. Totally shuts down the bishop. That might be the way to do it. Or g6, like I said. So, okay, so I think I have some options. I'm going to go ahead and castle, and we'll see. This is going to be an interesting decision if he goes for this. But I've seen enough that I'm comfortable. I'm going to have options to defend.
So we've got castling over there, and this is definitely something I want to do as well. I mentioned castling before. Nelson has castled. Do we want to? Another thing I was looking at, it'd be definitely good to get the knight a bit more central and get the knight developed. So obviously we can't go here because of this pawn. Here would not be great. Doubled pawns and on the edge of the board is not what we want. I'm tempted to castle as well. I just want to see if there's any opportunities now that Nelson has castled. For example, if we take there, take. Don't do that because of queen takes, obviously. If we castle, then rook is going to be here still protecting this pawn, so that doesn't leave it hanging. So that's good. We have a bit of a tactic. Queen here. And then maybe, for example, moving this pawn with this threatening the check there. Obviously, there's that escape route, so it's not checkmate. I think the safest the safest move, and the one that I'd normally do, is to castle.
I will say I think cornered chess is playing pretty well so far. I haven't noticed any huge mistakes. I mean, I felt like bishop g5 was a little bit of a, wasted move, but other than that, I think they've played for the most part pretty solid. Okay, and he decides to castle, probably a good decision, get the king out of the center. I'm thinking about rook b8, only because I like to put my rooks on open files and I attack a pawn at the same time. I'm thinking about bishop e6 because I want to develop. And where else do I move the bishop to? I can't go here. I can't go here. I can't go here. So I've got kind of like these options. I guess you could consider this, but that seems like a bunch of time for, I don't know why that's so valuable. So probably bishop e6. Knight to g6. Why would we do that? Bishop's going to go back. I don't really know if that benefits me. Yeah, the only thing about bishop e6 is it's an undefended square, so I have to watch out for stuff like this. I think I would probably just move it around like that, and I would be okay. Don't really see anything else that I can take advantage of in this position. So, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and play bishop to e6.
Knight is probably the next thing on our agenda. I feel like our bishops are pretty active. We've got this scope here. Obviously, this is staring into the pawn, but I want to keep this kind of tension in the middle between these two pawns. I don't want to open up the center and unleash the the game. So I'm going to keep that there. I also don't really want to push this pawn because it then stops my queen getting out. So I think maybe pushing these pawns here is a good idea. I think that's what I'll go with eventually. Pushing these pawns. I think knight first. That's going to be my first plan of action if nothing else major changes on the board. Also, we could, going here, allows us to reroute, threatening this bishop. This bishop is very active, and it's probably the most active piece on our position because it's targeting this. And I mentioned earlier I don't want to do this pawn push, but actually I can't anyway because of obviously that revealed check on the king. So it's tempting now to go here with the pawn. Nelson's just done bishop, moving the bishop out. And the reason for that is, what does that do? What does that do? That is an interesting one, isn't it? I don't know what that does. I'm sure it does something. It must do. But what? Why the bishop there? Obviously, this is not under attack. We've got the rook defending. Once this pawn moves and then take, that bishop is then eyeing up maybe targeting the rook. Is that what the idea is? Possibly. But if I go here, Nelson's going to have to move the bishop, no? He's not going to move it there because take. He's not going to move it there because take. Could move it there or there. Here, I would take, and that would bring the pawn or the queen. I think I'm going to push the pawn. This is not hanging, luckily. Sometimes I do that where you push the pawn and then the one behind is now hanging. So, yeah, luckily that's not hanging.
Okay, b4. So obviously we want to save the bishop. Really only looks like we have two options. And I don't really feel like this bishop here is doing a whole lot. Yes, it's attacking a pawn. Yes, it's pinning the pawn. But do I really care about that? I kind of feel like White's bishop is a little bit more active here. So I'm leaning towards actually trading this off by going for bishop to d6. I'm not really worried about a4 because I would play a5, so I could just leave it there. But a lot of times I want to look for, can I pair that with something? Like if I knight's on f6 and we can hop in, or maybe the rook is unleashed. In this case, I don't really see that. So I think I am going to go with d6 and maybe just trade these off. Of course, if white takes me, I'm happy. Probably will take with the queen to connect the rooks. And we can start thinking about where we want to put those guys.
I think here is... no, actually, I think he's going to go there, isn't he? I think he's going to go to b6 because he still wants to keep an eye on this. I think that's quite powerful. So I don't think he'll go here. But we'll see. I feel like... oh, he does go there. Fascinating. I'm really interested. At the end of the game, me and Nelson are going to go through this a little bit and see what, what's what, basically. Do we have anything with this pawn? Push, take, and then we just lose a bishop, so no. If we get more active with the queen, though, is that an option? Oh my god. That's just completely hanging, isn't it? I almost didn't spot that bishop is just completely hanging. So if we don't do anything with it, Nelson will just take. So that is hanging. We either can put the queen here. No, that would be taken. So we can either push this pawn or move the bishop, maybe to here. Doesn't really do much. Or we can take and then encourages the queen. I don't really want to encourage the queen because I don't think he's going to take with the pawn. Maybe he would because he can get this one out of the way. So maybe that would help him undouble his pawns as well. So I don't massively like that. If we push, then Nelson takes and then we disrupt. Our king is very open. So I think the best option, is going to be queen. Is there a problem with queen to f3? If we go queen to f3, pawn takes, then I think we're fine. So queen to f3, bishop takes, I take the bishop, pawn takes, and then I can move the bishop out of the way because the queen will be targeting the bishop. I'm going to go here. I think queen to f3. Let's have a look on the... yeah, we'll have a look on the game review. I think that's going to be the best move. We'll see.
All right, queen f3. So he wants to recapture this way. It's probably a good decision. And is also clearing the way for a rook here, so we'll keep an eye on that. Of course, do I have any tactics if I take this? If he takes with the queen, then maybe, because bishop to f5. I guess there's check, so I don't even think I have any tactics. Yeah, almost, but it doesn't quite work because something like queen check would put a stop to that. So I don't think there, and also you can take this way. I don't think there's any merit to taking there. I'm feeling like we should attack this with our knight. So do we do it now or do we trade first and then attack the queen? Probably I'm going to go here. Usually when you trade, it helps your opponent. Like if he takes me, my queen gets to come into the game. So probably we just go here. Are there any other moves that like make sense is what I'm trying to see. Takes. Nope, you can't really take advantage of that. But yeah, I think we're going to go with the knight first. This is well defended. Don't have to worry about that. Let's go knight to g6.
He's very... I don't know if this is the right term, but it looks like his position is very closed. In terms of... obviously his queen doesn't have a lot of scope here. This rook hasn't developed yet. The rooks aren't connected. Obviously ours aren't connected either. But I feel like we've got a lot of scope with this bishop. I guess he's got some here and some here, and he's more well targeted towards our king side, I guess it looks like. So that's a slight difference. So knight move, bringing the knight into the game, and the idea behind this knight move is this bishop, isn't it? Because it's being attacked twice, defended once. Now could be a time to take back. I don't like that too much though. We could push this pawn. That is an option. What's our best option? Because if we push the pawn, knight takes, we take the pawn. Then we have doubled pawns and we have an open king file. Maybe we could use that to our advantage, slide the king across and then target with the rook up here. Maybe. Or do we have a tactic? If we push this pawn and knight takes here, then we've lost a bishop. Check. King comes out. Ah, the knight would be there, so it would take our queen. So that doesn't work. If we push this pawn and then he takes there, we take that. No, that doesn't work either. So I think the way to do it is to also, I think this serves the purpose of starting to push these pawns on the king side. So I think that's, as far as I can see, I think that's the best option.
We'll force him to make a decision about the bishop. And if he goes back, well, then I'm going to start thinking about hopping in here, right? Or hopping over here and maybe launching an attack somehow. I need to figure out how the queen's going to get over there. But that's kind of what's going through my mind as we bring pieces. Because one thing you'll notice about the position, I have all three of my pieces that are now in the game, and this guy is still over here, right? This guy's still over here. So if we do launch an attack, I'm going to have a little bit more material over there, which could be, could be just what I need. So we'll see if that happens or not. Oh, interesting move. He plays G3. So my initial reaction is that can't be a good move because you're first of all, you're moving a pawn in front of the king. You're creating weaknesses here that I could immediately take advantage of if I want to. I mean, the rook could move and maybe the bishop could come back. But yeah, that just feels like I should be able to take advantage of this. The question is how. So I'm thinking about trading here to force the pawn to move because then it also opens up the G file. Unfortunately, my queen can't activate, can't get over there immediately, but could also play queen d7, trying to line up this way. So yeah, it's just a question of how do we take advantage of that at this point. Take with the knight. No, I don't really think that the bishop's going to be as valuable as the knight right now because of the weaknesses here. But I definitely think this is probably what I'm going to play. But, interesting. How do we get the queen over there is really the big question. Something like takes. F5, no, maybe queen E8. And we move the knight and we bring the queen that way. That might make more sense. Yeah, okay. So let's think about that. Takes. I think I definitely want to take. I just want to open up the king. So let's go ahead and do that. And then I'm still thinking, like, what's the follow-up going to be?
I think there might be a pawn push coming eventually on this side now as well. Let's see what happens here. But I feel like this knight has been languishing in the stable too long, not doing anything. So we need to get that knight into the action. So takes. Okay. It's going to be a take back, isn't it? And that's going to be the start of what I feel like is disrupting my chances. But we do have a fork, to be fair. We do have that cheeky fork, which he's going to see, obviously. He's definitely going to see that.
But I'm leaning towards queen e8 because when this diagonal is blocked, a lot of times the easiest thing to do to get the queen involved is to go like this. Now we have to watch out for f5, but we have a in-between move. Could also play f5 myself, and the idea is if he takes, I take. This looks fantastic because now my rook and my knight and my queen are all coming to the party. Doesn't have to take. You could play e5. And we jump the knight in. We still have to figure out how to get the queen over there. I mean, I guess I should start with the obvious. If I just go there right away, I'm expecting maybe queen g3. f5. e5 is annoying because it stops me from bringing the rook over. Yeah, e5 is such an annoying move. So, yeah, it definitely feels like I should have something. I just don't see it at the moment. And so, probably going to go with f5. And then if he locks up the center, at least then I could take my time and continue to try to attack over there is what I'm thinking. Maybe even something like d4 to unleash this diagonal could work for me. But I think f5 is probably the move here. We already talked about the trade here, which looks fantastic for me. And so, yeah, let's go ahead with f5. We have 3 minutes, so I have to move a little bit faster.
Or maybe finding a more active place, maybe attacking with the knight. That could... Oh, how would I deal with that? That's quite annoying, isn't it? Attacking with the knight. I could put the queen here. Attacking with the knight would be annoying. I can't go there because I'll be taken. I can't kick the knight with a pawn because I just moved it over. That would be annoying. Pawn push. Stopping my fork makes sense, right? Because I mentioned about that fork, he's obviously going to see it. He doesn't want to retreat the bishop and get rid of the development that he's done. So he's attacking this pawn, threatening his own fork with the... That's clever, isn't it? Threatening his own fork with the bishop and the queen. If I take, then he'll take with either the bishop or the rook. Not the rook, because then I would just take with the bishop. So I take the pawn, he takes the pawn. I take the bishop, he takes the bishop, and the rook is there. Does that give us anything extra that we want? Not really. Not really. If I allow him to take, that's going to be an issue, isn't it? There's an option of a push. That is always an option. Close up the centre a bit. Is that going to favour us or him pushing that pawn? I'm going to push with the idea of queen sliding over and bishop doing another fork. That's my master plan. That's my genius. Because if knight takes, obviously we just take with the pawn. So that's my plan there.
While my opponent is thinking, I'm going to start thinking as well, how do I break through if he plays e5? Because this is really what I'm expecting, right? e5. You can immediately bring the queen over. And, oh, actually, we're just attacking f4, and he can't defend that. Yeah, I think I was making it more difficult than it needed to be. That's actually a super obvious way to just win the pawn. And once you win that pawn, you're probably going to win this pawn. So you're kind of just winning 2 pawns, essentially. So there we go. I didn't see that initially. I was stuck on knight h4 and like other queen moves, but if he plays e5, we're just going to go queen h4. So that's actually pretty easy. So taking, like I said, does not look good. Again, we're going to win the pawn. And now, yeah, now we can kind of see like why that g3 decision really doesn't look like it's working out for white. You know, he could have just traded the bishop, went on with the game, and he would have had these nice 3 pawns just sitting here without really any weaknesses for me to attack. So I think that was a pretty big mistake. He does go with e5, and let's just verify everything's defended, so we're good to go here. Let's go ahead, queen h4, like I mentioned, and we're just going to win a pawn. There's just no way for white to defend the pawn. And it happens to be the only pawn that's supporting this pawn. And so really, I think we're going to get 2 pawns out of this deal.
Queen. Now this is getting... Oh God. Oh, this is... I don't like how close this is with the queen to my king in check. And... Okay. So this pawn is the target as well, isn't it? Because attacked twice, defended once. It's not going to be a check here because that would just be simple take. Check here, take, and then pawns. I guess it could be that as well. Now, here is defended. It's not going to be there. Is there a way... If he takes with the knight, this is an issue for me, isn't it? This is an issue. If he... I'm thinking of bringing the knight over. If he takes with the knight and I take... I'm not going to take back, so I've just lost a pawn against someone who's definitely capable. If I go here, he can't take with the knight because I'll just take the queen. So I think that's the only move, because the other move that I'm thinking of is knight bringing here, but that doesn't do anything for this part of this attack that's happening. So I think by going here, it prevents me losing a pawn. He can take the pawn by doing this and then bringing the knight in, but that's less scary to me at least than having the lost pawn, the knight, and the queen attacking down on my king. So I think I'm going to go for that. Queen to g3. That's my thinking.
Of course, if I see an opportunity to like checkmate the king, I'll do it. But right now, I don't see that. So we'll go ahead and focus on the pawns. Because once we get rid of the pawns, then the rook can come up and over, and that's when you start looking for checkmate. And again, I mentioned it earlier, I think, in the video, the knight has not moved. This is bad. If you ever find yourself playing a game where you never got your pieces into the action, you know something went wrong, right? And that's a big part of the problem. I mean, imagine if white had a knight that was just like sitting somewhere, like here, defending the pawn, or I don't know, here, and it was attacking something and giving you more options, right? It would be much more difficult for me. But because these pieces are out of the game, I'm just coming in here. Okay, so he goes queen to g3. So, of course, we can't take with the knight or we lose our queen. Of course, we don't want to trade queens or we just make his pawns look amazing and I would probably lose the game. So I believe the only move here that even needs to be considered, queen takes f4, looks good to me. Let's go ahead and grab the pawn. And it does trade queens, so we lose the ability to like go for a quick checkmate. But when you're going to be most likely winning 2 pawns, that's going to be a good endgame. And that being said, the king still actually looks in a very precarious position. Also, the fact that he has to waste a move now, saving the bishop, right? Kind of gives me some time to do something right away.
Now, are we going to get a queen trade? Is that what's going to happen? We do. And I'm just going to do that instantly because I don't want to waste time, and that's what I was planning. So, okay, we're a pawn down. Bishop is under attack here from the good old knight. So we've got a hanging pawn in the centre, a very open king. So he's just whittled me down, hasn't he? We haven't developed the knight at all yet, and this is under attack, so we have to move to safety. Where is a good square for... Do we have any forks to watch out for? That checks the king, but it's not a fork. Where's a good square for the bishop? Not here, obviously. Not here, not here. I think we only have this square or this square. So what's the best option? I think... What's going to happen if he... I think this square. And what's going to happen if he checks us here? He's going to check. And then we can move towards. So I don't see it as a massive problem yet. So let's move here. And the reason I want this square and not this one obviously keeps an eye on this pawn, but it's well defended and not much is going on there. Not much is going on here either if we were on that square. But this square, we threaten this fork with this pawn that's undefended and basically weak because it's been doubled earlier on.
I guess he's going to go here. Maybe he could defend with the rook. I don't know if I'm going to trade because I really kind of want to go knight check and then start pushing this pawn. And so then I think we can launch a little attack here. Of course, trading and going into the endgame looks fine because we're already up the pawn. And if I let's just say trade, push f4, this guy's going to be abandoned, so we could pile up on that. And I'm going to most likely win the endgame relatively easily with 2 extra pawns. That being said, I really do just like the look of knight h3. It's a very annoying situation for the king to be in, especially if I get my rook, my knight, and my bishop involved in the attack. Okay, did not consider that move. I guess it makes sense. He wants to come over here. The problem with this idea is that this is so far from like the action that I don't feel like that's going to be very helpful for white. So here we go. I think I will go for this check. And
so that's the threat there. We have the check. I don't feel like moving into the corner is a safe idea. I feel like going here. Then he's going to check again, maybe. Then we can move again. I feel like going here is the better option. We'll obviously see. But we can't take the knight, obviously, because of this. So that pawn is kind of marching on. Can we do anything on this side? If this pawn comes here, we could just take... Oh no, because of the rook. The rook. So that is an issue, isn't it? So this bishop is an issue, but we can threaten a higher value piece. We can threaten a higher value piece. So I think I'm going to do that. We're even on time now. He was very generous at the start.
I'm putting pressure on the king, but I also have a very clear follow-up. F4 stops F4 from white, which means that this pawn is weak, which is great, but it also unleashes my bishop, which defends my knight and brings it into the attack, which is also great. So that's why I'm so excited about knight h3, because I see this follow-up. Yeah, and here we go. F4. There we go. We defend that. We stop this guy. We might even push this if we need to, or bring the rook up and go for like a checkmate or something. We could totally checkmate in this position with the rook, a knight, and a bishop, right? Especially if this guy decides to come over here and start hunting down pieces that don't really matter at this moment, right? Let's see. Yeah, f3 looks really good. Rook here looks really good. Of course, if we lose the knight, then we have check. King goes here, check. He is going to go for that, right? So, two ways to approach this that I'm seeing. 1 and 2. Of course, there's probably more, maybe even bishop here or something, but this seems to be obvious, and rook f5. So let's start with one at a time. f3 check. You can't go there. You could go up, or you could go in the corner. If you go in the corner, how do I get my bishop there is the question. Move the knight, move the bishop, move the bishop. Yeah, that looks very, very good for me. I like that. Let's check rook f5 real quick. What's the idea? Well, the idea is I want to go check. He goes in the corner. I'm still going to play f3. Yeah, so I think I'm going to start with f3, and I might follow it up with the rook move, or I might follow it up with the knight move. But f3 looks very, very powerful. So let's go ahead.
So we've got the check. Interesting. We can move back, but like I said before, I don't like that idea of being pinned in the corner. So I'm going to go for getting the king out. And now this, obviously, because that check, he delayed this problem. He's probably, I don't know if he can defend this pawn as well. I'm thinking he's going to move the rook over. I guess he can move it to any square, but I don't know if he can defend that pawn too. I don't think he can. So, like I've said before, my genius is incredible. Even against a national master, I find ways to win pawns. Incredible. I know you're jealous of my chess abilities. You only wish you could be as brilliant as me. So, bearing in mind, after saying that literally for this entire game, even while saying it multiple times, this knight, I should say, but this knight has literally not moved, and I'm just going to get destroyed in the commentary about this, because what is it doing? It's literally not done anything. Meanwhile, his knights have been very active, definitely attacking a lot more. I need to get that knight in the game, especially, it would be very good. So this is why I should have done it earlier, because it would have prevented this, and then I could take with the knight, and then if he takes with the rook, I just take. So it doesn't work, does it? Need to get that knight out earlier. I allowed him to open up the king. So he's defending there. But can I not just take the rook? Can I not just take this rook? What? Oh, this is a trap, isn't it? This is some like checkmate trap. It is a check. Okay, this is some checkmate trap, because I can't actually go back because of this pawn. You think you can go back, but you can't. I only just realised that. I can't go here. Can't go here. Can't go here. So the only square I can go to, let me just check that. Yeah, I can't go to these. Rook. I can't go here. I can't go there. So the only square my king can move to is here. So what's he going to do next? What's his plan? Can he checkmate me with knight goes there? Then I could move over. So yeah, if knight goes there, I could move over. Is there a way he can checkmate me? Oh, God. I want to take I'm going to take the rook. I'm going to take the rook. I know that must be the wrong move, because there's some weird checkmate coming that I didn't calculate properly, but I can't see it.
I'm expecting the king h1. He could go here, like I said, but that also looks very bad, because then we're going to get this rook involved somehow, and then this rook's going to come over, maybe, if we have time. Might not even need that rook. He does go king g3. Interesting. So, do I actually just have a simple checkmate is the first question here. Rook up. I lose a rook. We go... but then the pawn is undefended. Oh. All right, so what if we do it a different way? What if we do it... Oh, okay. What if I go knight g5? Lose a rook. Check. This is defended. This is taken away. This is okay. You have to go to h4 in that situation. So boom, boom. King's on h4 now. We have rook check. Forces the king to go here. And then there's got to be checkmate, right? There must be. g6. Forces the king to go here or here. Oh no, my knight's here. Yeah, so it has to go here. And then checkmate. So, did I miss anything, though? Let's just think about that. Did I miss anything? If he plays, like, here, then I would have to just move my rook, probably. Otherwise, we should get checkmate. The other way to do it would be to go here, trying to do this. But I really want my knight to be here. I'm running out of time, so I'm going to go ahead and play it. I definitely saw a checkmate if he takes my rook. I think white's best move is knight to d2 to stop me from going here. In which case, like I said, I'll probably just move this rook. Yeah, so knight to d2. There's also some idea of like throwing this h-pawn down the board. Bishop here to reroute the bishop. So that I could bring maybe the rook up and checkmate. I mean, there's so many... Wow, there's so many ways you could do this. And a minute and a half is not really long enough to look at all of them. Not at my skill level. So, probably what I'm going to do if he goes here is just save my rook and then continue the attack. The thing about sacrificing your rook is you kind of have to, like, you have to see the checkmate or the follow-up. You can't just, like, just give up a rook and see what happens. Especially not without queens on the board, right? If queens were on the board, that'd be a different story. But knight to d2 would be a very good move here. See if Corner to Chess can find this one. I'll be very impressed if he plays this. Okay. Didn't play it. That's a tough move to see. You would have to kind of see the checkmate, and it's hard to turn down a rook, right? So here we go, knight to e4, and as long as we didn't miscalculate, there's a checkmate here, which I don't think we did. So you could see that there's just no squares for the king, right?
I can't see where the checkmate is. So we got the check, which I mentioned. I can't go here. I can't go there. I can't go there. I have to go to one of these squares. Now, where am I not going to get checkmated? Oh, I can't go here, sorry. So I don't have a choice. There's no choice. I can't go to those squares. So I have to go... I can't take the knight, I don't believe. So I have to go here. That's literally the only choice. And is there a checkmate coming? Oh... There's literally only one choice, so I don't feel bad about taking no time on that move, I should say. And then rook comes in. Where can I go now? And I can only go here, I believe. Yep, I can't take that rook, so I feel trapped. I think that's checkmate with rook to f5, is it? Or bishop. Oh dear. Good game. Oh, man.
And you've got to go here to h4. And that's when we come in with the rook. We go with the pawn. And then we deliver the checkmate with the rook. Yeah. Okay, and let's just see. There's also g5, but I guess... I don't know if that's, like, faster. It probably doesn't matter. We'll just go with this one that we already calculated. It's forced because it's all checks. And... Oh, there's even, there's a faster checkmate, right? I could do that, or this is better. Let's just verify, yeah. All right, well played, I'll say, by Corner Chess. Found some nice moves. Didn't make too many huge blunders. I mean, the game kind of got away after G3, but very well played. I'm actually going to analyze the game with Corner Chess. We're going to do a little meeting and talk through it. So if you want to see that, he's going to be posting that on his channel. I'll link it in the description. Go check that out. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know how we can improve this series, and I'll see you next time. Stay sharp. Play smart and take care. And again, big thanks to Corner Chess for playing against me. Go check out the follow-up discussion that we're about to have.